Welcome back here once again, everyone. Before I get into this video, I just want to give you all this update on Jeremy Renner. This article here from Bounding into Comics states Hawkeye actor Jeremy Renner returns to his home after horrifying snowplow accident. Now, I did a short bit of information on this in a previous video that Jeremy Renner had been run over by his snowplow. Apparently, he was trying to rescue some of his family, something who had gotten stuck in the snow, and he suffered some chest injuries, and his leg was injured, but apparently now he is back at home. He's still recovering, but he's back at home. So let's take a quick look at this here. Hawkeye actor Jeremy Renner returned to his home and family following a horrifying snowplow accident earlier this month. Following the premiere of his Paramount Plus show Mayor of Kingston, Renner detailed he had returned home and was able to watch the premiere with his family. He wrote on Twitter, "Outside my brain fog in recovery, I was very excited to watch episode 201 with my family at home." That's what he had to say. This is clips from the episode here. Renner returning home comes just days after his sister Kim Renner shared a promising update on his recovery from the accident, where he suffered blunt chest trauma and orthopedic injuries. She told People magazine, if anyone knows Jeremy, he is a fighter and doesn't mess around. He's crushing all the progress goals. We couldn't feel more positive about the road ahead. A source close to Renner also told People Jeremy is making positive progress, and while he has a long road to recovery, he is overwhelmed by the showing of love and support. So it looks like Jeremy Renner is recovering well. He is at home and he's getting there. It's going to be a long road to recovery, as they say, but everything looks promising at the moment, and I just want to continue to ask fans and stuff to keep him in their prayers and pray for his speedy recovery. Now let's move on to what this video is about. That Shill Media, right? Shill Media once again is coming out to talk about the 10 worst things about modern Marvel comics. This is what CBR had to say, because I've said before, DC Comics is in the toilet right now, and Marvel Comics is not far behind. They are doing a lot of things that are just destroying their credibility in ways that don't make sense. Now, they point out 10 things in this video, in this article, and some of them I do not agree with, so I'm not even going to really touch on those, because they seem nonsensical to me and they make no sense. What I'm going to focus on are the things that I believe that they actually were spot on about, and give my reasoning as to why these things actually make sense and why they are destroying Marvel Comics. Let's go through this here. The first one that we'll deal with is redeeming villains in order to put them in books is dumb. Here's what the article has to say. Marvel basically created making villains into heroes, with examples like Hawkeye, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Rogue. It's a tried and true hope on the publisher. Marvel has been known to take a popular villain and make them into a hero to put them into team books or miniseries, which is ridiculous. DC has been putting out books about villains being villains for a long time. Sure, Marvel does this too at times, but for the most part, it's a cycle. The villain gets popular, becomes a hero, gets into a book, and then either stays a hero if their popularity continues or goes back to being a villain. It's such a strange way of doing things. Now, as they say here, with some examples like Hawkeye, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Rogue. Even if you just take Hawkeye, for instance, Hawkeye was a really good way that it did a villain becoming a hero, because Hawkeye did start off as a villain, as a criminal, and then he became a hero, and people really liked the character and all of this. Okay, but when you have what Marvel is doing now is that they're making everybody, pretty much everyone, into a hero. All these villains into a hero. I think the only one that they haven't done that with is Thanos, and I'm not even sure what's going on with Thanos. And they did something with him before, it was kind of ridiculous, but pretty much everybody else becomes a hero. Even if you look at just X-Men, for instance, all these X-Men villains who were trying to kill them for years and all that thing, now they all live happily singing Kumbaya with this Krakoa era, and it doesn't make sense. And the bigger problem with it is that what they do, which is even really more stupid when they try to redeem these villains, is that they make these villains have these really sad backstories to kind of explain why they're doing it and making you sympathetic. It was sort of like when they changed Magneto and added back, and he was in the Holocaust and all of this thing, even though that was not the character was originally created, but he was changed, and when he was Chris Claremont who made that change, and they kind of gave him a sympathetic backstory. And even now Magneto is basically redeemed. He's with the X-Men. Like I said before, the X-Men have completely abandoned Charles' dream, and they now fully embrace Magneto's role. But that's what they did with Magneto. The bigger issue is that when they do this with these villains, they make the heroes look like a bunch of crappy bastards, right? They make the heroes look very petty and very vindictive, and they have anger for them, do all kind of wickedness. So then you start hating the heroes, sympathizing with the villains, and when people come in now to read it, they're very confused as to actually who is the villain and who is the hero, because the line has just been rubbed out at that point. Totally rubbed out. Let's get on to the next one. They're known to make things more like the MCU in hopes of bringing in crossover fans. Now, I could read this, but let me just give up my take on it one time. The minute you start changing comic books to fit what's going on in the movies, it's a recipe for disaster. Because the movie should mirror the comics, not the other way around. And they've started to very well do that there, because even if you look at what's something like Ms. Marvel, in the MCU they changed Ms. Marvel's powers. She had some bracelet that has a kind of energy construct, things that she knew kind of like Green Lantern. They decided to make that change to her in the comics as well. I don't know if it ever really stuck or anything like that, but they were thinking about making that change as well. And they start doing things, making changes in the comics to fit what's going on in the MCU, and it does not track, because what they're basically saying is that a lot of fans know the MCU more than they know the comics, which doesn't work. The MCU should be a direct representation, well, not 100%, but we understand that, of what's going on in the comics. So when fans see what's going on with the MCU, they're interested to see what's going on in the comics. But when the MCU doesn't make much sense, and the comics are being changed to fit the MCU, which also doesn't make much sense, you're just confusing people. And it doesn't stick at all, because you clearly don't know what you're doing, and they literally have no idea what they're going to do with the MCU going forward. But that's what they're getting. The Avengers feel like second-class citizens sometimes. Let me read this one. The Avengers are Earth's mightiest heroes. They're one of the cornerstones of Marvel, along with the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and Spider-Man and Wolverine. However, for whatever reason, Marvel is okay with letting them fade into the background. Comparing the Avengers to the X-Men, the two properties are treated entirely differently. While the Avengers started the multiple book angle that has allowed the X-Men to flourish, Marvel hasn't allowed the Avengers to use it nearly as much. The last time there was true variety in the Avengers was during 2012's Marvel Now relaunch. Even then, there were only 4 books. 5 if you count Young Avengers. There are 2 Avengers books currently, but Marvel barely pushed them until recently. Okay. Say that the Avengers feel like second-class citizens of them doesn't really work. The Avengers are a team. And the fact is that, the Avengers books have become so saturated over time, and they don't feel special anymore, because pretty much everybody has been an Avenger at this point. We've had the Fantastic Four becoming Avengers, Spider-Man becoming Avengers, Wolverine becoming Avengers, new heroes becoming Avengers who haven't got anything to really beating. The Avengers used to be a group of heroes come together to do something. But all their books are actually directly connected to the Avengers because, yes, they are a team, but they are individuals doing their own thing. So when you have an Iron Man book, that's also an Avengers book. Captain America, that's also an Avengers book. Black Widow, that's also an Avengers book because most of the times Avengers make appearances in those books. What you're getting, no, and they say that, they never say here that, there's also, like if it comes to like 555, if it comes to Young Avengers, what it has Avengers in the name? It's an Avengers book. That's just a given. But when you have writers like Jason Aaron going in there and changing the Avengers, because he's completely changed the Avengers mythos. The Avengers came together to do something. Now he's changing and making it like, there were prehistoric Avengers. The Avengers across the multiverse. It loses its special, it loses its authenticity. You understand? You cannot make something and then decide, okay, well, we're going to abandon everything whatever good about it and change it to whatever reason or whatever purpose that we want, and then come out and say that, the Avengers feel like second-class citizens. The Avengers are the Avengers. I think personally the Avengers really only need one book because it's the Avengers. But when you have the individual team members, those are also Avengers books because they are Avengers. And they sometimes make appearances in these books and there are references to the Avengers in these books. So it's not necessarily the second-class citizens. There are many books with individual Avengers out there in them. And the main Avengers book should be the main Avengers book, not scattered across 10 to 15 different books where at the end of the day, you don't even know who the hell is an Avenger anymore. That is destroying it. That is making it second class. And that makes it seem like, it doesn't matter at all. Sales are more important than quality. This is a fact. This is a fact. Once upon a time, a writer named Chuck Austen wrote Uncanny X-Men and then X-Men. Fans hated both books with a burning passion, constantly complaining about the quality of his writing and stories. However, he stayed on the books from 2000 to 2004, writing stories that have gone down as the worst X-Men comics of all time. So why was he kept on the books for so long? Sales never went down. This isn't an isolated incident either. Marvel has done this many times in the past, ignoring fan complaints until sales suffer. Marvel has put out 3 huge selling comics, and it seems like that's all that matters. As long as sales don't suffer, changes don't get made. Now, as they say here, sales are more important than quality. But what sales? And the problem, yes, Marvel comics sell more than DC. But is that really to say that, okay, they are doing exceptionally well? No. A lot of fans are walking away from Marvel because they don't like what is being done. There is no proper consistency. There's no, as they say here, the quality is terrible. And they don't listen to their fans. They don't listen to their fans. You may have a really good story, we have that you could tell, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And most of the time, they keep hiring writers who could meet deadlines, but put out very poor quality work. So when you see things here about, people talking about how they hate it, but say not, sales never really went down. What are you comparing these sales numbers to? If you're comparing these sales numbers to the fact that, Marvel comics are selling more than DC, okay. But by the grand scheme of things, manga is outpacing them by leaps and bounds. Millions of Marvel books are selling. When it comes to comics, you're lucky if sometimes they cross the thousands, if they ever even do that. So sales, yes. Quality, no. But again, the sales numbers, what are they really comparing it to? That's the problem. What are they really comparing it to? This one is a much more interesting one. Consistent yet mediocre talent get high-profile jobs. This is a problem not just with Marvel, but also with DC. Let me read here what they have to say. Marvel has long been a company that rewards loyalty and punishes disloyalty. This has been a thing since the Stan Lee days at the publisher, when being part of Lee's circle meant jobs and being outside of it meant getting fired. Marvel has kept this up, with many getting jobs more out of consistency and loyalty than talent. So as long as you are loyal to the Marvel brand, you keep failing upwards, but your quality is terrible. There are several examples of Marvel writers and artists who hit their deadlines and do what the editors say, but create subpar work getting big jobs. Consistency and loyalty are fine traits, but rewarding mediocrity has damaged many books. This is very true. Very, very true. You look at the Jerry Duggans out there, who's this next one? Well, basically, let's say the entire X-Men writers' room. Meeting deadlines, terrible, terrible stories being told. Even if you look at the writer who's currently writing a Spider-Man, god awful work. But nobody's saying that, these people need to be replaced. You cannot have mediocre, not even mediocre, terrible people getting high-profile jobs because you keep failing upwards, and all you have to do is meet deadlines, and that's all that matters to them. And you keep getting put on books that have absolutely no quality whatsoever. And when these people get put there and the quality of it drops, nobody is actually saying to them, listen, you need to do something better. No, their books get cancelled, they move on to something else. I try to remember this writer. She's writing on X-Men now. She made she did the whole thing with Psylocke and Betsy Barber thing getting together. She also wrote Catwoman. Terrible work, but you keep getting hired, you keep failing upwards, and somehow you're thinking that this is something to be proud of. Why? Very subpar work. Oh God, well, I call it on this one. The Amazing Spider-Man is a best-selling book that is hated by a large percentage of its readers. Oh yes, it is. Being a Spider-Man fan is trying, and Marvel seems to want it that way. The Amazing Spider-Man is always at the top of the sales charts, yet readers' satisfaction hasn't been high in years. The current run has seen fans enjoy individual stories while hating everything else about the book. This is quite common for the Amazing Spider-Man in the 21st century. Marvel editorial has decreed that Spider-Man shouldn't be allowed to grow as a character at any time beyond his pre-Mary Jane marriage status quo. They've used the Parker lock as an excuse to destroy any character development. The Amazing Spider-Man sells very well, but its esteem in readers' eyes is remarkably low. Now, explain this to me. Spider-Man is your highest selling comic, your highest selling character. People want this character to be good with other, but no. What are you supposed to do? Right now we have, I think it's Zeb Wells is writing Amazing Spider-Man. We still don't know what in God's name Peter did that was so bad that made everybody turn against it. You've ruined this. You've ruined his relationship with Mary Jane once again. She's married to somebody else with kids and all kind of thing. Why? Because you just can't seem to get over yourself. Peter Parker was never be happy. The man has a wife who's a supermodel. Well, Mary Jane with her. Let the man be happy now. I think, there's some Spider-Man right now going back to college or something. I don't get it. Peter Parker is a genius. Let him be a genius. That's what people want. No, you're not giving them that. You're just constantly ruining the character, dragging him down. We want to see this character evolve. We want to see Spider-Man and Mary Jane be together, being married, see them have a married life, doing that. Eventually maybe have some kids and get a life going. That's what people want. People don't want this constant breaking down of the character to fit some sick narrative that you have in your mind that somehow this character must never go past a certain level. No. Peter Parker's always kind of been the everyman, kind of, doing this and the other. But we want to see this character grow. You're destroying that, and people are turning away from it. The only reason that these books keep selling is because they keep rebooting it. Every time reaches a certain point, they backtrack and you get another number one. So people go back and buy it thinking, well, maybe it's going to be something good. No, it isn't. And finally, X-Men has completely fallen from grace. Oh, yes, they have. In 2019, X-Men was riding off the success of House of M, Powers of M, with writer Jonathan Hickman at the helm. His 21 issues weren't always amazing, but it was still a great book. Unfortunately, he left the book in the summer of 2021 before leaving the X-Men line altogether. Writer Jerry Duggan took over, and the book has taken its place among comics' biggest disappointments. While the book's art has ranged from stellar to great, the writing barely rises to mediocrity. It was the flagship of the X-Men line until the 2022 premiere of Immortal X-Men and X-Men Red, two books that run circles around it. It's not a coincidence that fan esteem in the X-Men line and sales fell during that period. I mean, commenters to say that, because Jonathan Hickman left and that Jerry Duggan took over is what kind of destroyed X-Men, isn't a fair comparison. The entire X-Men writers' room are a bunch of idiots. There's no other way to put that. They consistently destroy everything good about the X-Men. I've said this before. The Krakoan era right now is one of the worst eras in X-Men history. The X-Men are no longer the outcast mutants fighting to do what's right. No. They've completely abandoned Charles Xavier's whole way of thinking when it comes to the X-Men. They've embraced Magneto's way of thinking. They've gone to this cool Krakoan era thing now where everybody, doesn't matter, all mutants, doesn't matter if you are a villain or who now, live in harmony in this thing, singing Kumbaya and enjoying yourself and all of that. There's no consequences for anything anymore because any and everybody could be resurrected at any time. It's gone. Everything that ever made the X-Men interesting is gone, and they constantly try to make it seem like, listen, we just need to just do this, do that. No, these characters were never that good, and people could accuse me of constantly saying this all they want. But even if you look at a character like let's say Iceman, one of the founding members of the X-Men, cool powers. What has Iceman been reduced to? Just the gay mutant. Out of nowhere, that's it. The rest of the X-Men are no better. You have more than one Wolverine, which makes no sense. You have Cyclops was I think it was Captain Krakoa at some point or the other. Ridiculous as always. They keep trying to push in a bunch of nonsense in these books that nobody wants. This is the worst X-Men has ever been. They are bringing back mutants who died years ago because now death means nothing to them. The only thing that you're getting out of the X-Men nowadays is this whole Hellfire Gala, which was something that I believe that happened some years ago. It was a one-off. The Hellfire Gala was this one-off that I think it was Claremont who did that. I could be wrong. It's been by me. I could be wrong. Where it was just a setup for I think the Sentinels to slaughter them. The whole Hellfire Gala lasted like about 2 or 3 pages, and then the whole slaughtering began. Now you have the Hellfire Gala as an annual book where you have all the X-Men in drag, dancing and all kind of thing. It makes no freaking sense. You destroyed this book and you won't stop. So there it is, people. Even CBR has come out to admit some of the things that are really wrong with Marvel Comics, and they don't seem to ever want to get better. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. If you like the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell. Be notified every time I put out a new video. And I shall see you all next time. Take care.